Good morning, people. I'm going to talk about the Tic Tac UFO UAP. Specifically, an interview I watched from Commander Fravor, who was one of the at least 4 people who saw this thing and tracked it in their F/A-18s. All right, so let's get right to it. Statements of absolute fact about the Tic Tac UFO. When I watched this interview, it was from the National Geographic special about UFO UAPs. It's kind of a series, and it was called Secret Pentagon Program. So, what did he say in Secret Pentagon Program that caught my attention and that caused me to actually go back and make a few additions to my manuscript for my UFO UAP book, and I believe this would have been like chapter 3, and it's about what these aliens are possibly communicating to us and information we can get from them. So, statement of fact number 1, and let me give it context before I even give you the state of fact. First of all, a minimum of 2 fighter jets were attempting to intercept it and gain visual and radar lock on it, all right? And both have 2 people on it, and therefore 4 people were involved. Minimum of 4 people were involved in the air on this mission, and I'm assuming at the very least the pilots had visual confirmation, if not the co-pilots. You know, they also have access to the sky, a visual access. So number 1, he mentioned that while his plane had to make turns, okay, because it requires the use of aerodynamics with wings and tails and the maneuver flaps on there. Imagine this: he would turn, and this thing would just make right hand. It traveled only in straight lines and turned in right-hand turns, instantaneous turns at extremely high velocity. So this thing is made of something sturdier than even aircraft titanium, aluminum, or steel. All right, because at the speeds it was moving at, and some of these things go up to Mach 30. Even flying in a straight line, it begins to tear itself apart. Making sudden right-hand turns, making only right-hand turns, and making them at high velocity. Many aircraft will tear themselves apart or begin to degrade. And so that's something to know. All right. It was also a transmedium occurrence, and it was tracked. I assume it was tracked by submarines. There's always a submarine accompanying an aircraft task force, so that part has not been disclosed, but it would have to have existed because aircraft carrier task forces do not go out unprotected, unaccompanied, and untracked. These things are tracked by satellite. These things have accompanying surface craft, and they always have an accompanying submarine. They would have to. An aircraft carrier task force that belongs to the United States that is not accompanied by some form of submarine does not exist. You're more likely to find an Easter bunny. All right. Secondly, this is an interesting statement. In fact, it's one of the few times when I can hear about the color of the object, and he said it was a clear white object. He did not say it was metallic. He did not say it was shiny metallic, silvery metallic. He said the object was white, clear white. Let's think about this for a second. And I'm assuming the other pilots could confirm this, but David Fravor was the one interviewed on that interview, and there was like some dramatic music playing and all that, but I heard him loud and clear. So, what does it mean? Using the science, the communication science of semiotics, which is the study of symbolism, color is a symbol. Take a look at what's going on in this country with race and nationality. Color is always a significant thing. It affects our interactions. And I'm going to say this. I'll bet you a lot of black people interact with really black people differently than they do with lighter skinned white people in every skin color in between, and the same for other races. I think that humans respond to visual stimuli, and one of the things we respond to is color, all right? And for good or for bad, it colors our relationships and our interactions, and it interacts with our cognitive filters on how we interact with this world, and possibly the girl you're talking to, right? For better or worse, but it exists. It's a phenomena. It is not imaginary. Well, color of objects tells us things. First of all, he claims that the object was tic-tac shaped, and I forget the actual dimensions, but it was big enough to be tracked in the air by a fighter pilot, and show up on radar. So it was substantial, probably at least the size of a car, maybe bigger. And it was white and shaped like a tic-tac. All right. So it had no aerodynamics. It had no wings, no tails. It maneuvered by and propelled by something else. It gave out no exhaust. It had a heat signature, but it didn't have a heat plume. All right. None that are reported. And it was white. White is an interesting color choice. One possibility is that when objects are flying, white is harder to spot, and therefore they're not, whatever this thing is, I believe it's a techno signature from somebody or something, most likely unmanned, most likely not belonging to any known nation or human entity because of its apparent technological and energetic capabilities, but it was white like my refrigerator before I put stuff on it, right? And what does that tell you? It tells you that, again, and consistent with the behavior of these things, they're not necessarily going out of their way to be spotted. When they are spotted, they don't necessarily shy away from us interacting with it, but they do move away from any attempts to get close or touch or anything like that. So it's almost like the philosophy is look but don't touch. So again, that could be consistent with an automated process. It could be consistent with a form of intelligence controlling it from either inside this thing, craft, vehicle, or remotely like we do our drones. But there is no report of intercepted radio signals and whatnot, so if it does, it's classified, but it may be a medium we cannot intercept. Again, that's not a statement of fact, that's a speculation, but the statement of fact is that pilots have spotted the thing, they tell us its shape, and they tell us it's white. Now, whiteness is an interesting color in any form of technology, because things that are white tend to get less white over time. Natural fact. I mean, white acquires stains better, right? If a thing is white through and through like marble, it can acquire stains. Sunlight over hundreds of years can affect its color. Chemicals can mar it, interact with it, stain it. It can be charred. And therefore, over time, the white thing gets a little bit less white, and you can actually detect its age, right? White paint, white covering as a surface layer over something, tends to chip and erode as well as acquire some type of color. Now, you have things like porcelain that, have a glaze on it, which make them resistant to staining and whatnot. But over time, what can happen is that surface can get eroded. Okay, take a look at porcelain, and if there's a scratch on the surface of a bathtub, a toilet bowl, a piece of fine china, that scratch can then interact with the environment, and that scratch can acquire pigmentation, right? And he describes it as white. don't recall if he said absolute clear white or shiny white, but he said it was white. And so, what could we infer from that? Again, now we're getting into speculation. It could be new or fairly new. It could be either a new object or a new coat, a new covering. Now, mind you, because these things occur over and over again, over time as they're tracked, it probably isn't brand new, what we would call brand new. What's the other possibility? It could periodically have new coats placed on it. Again, that's more likely. Another possibility in conjunction with this or separate is that there is a way of cleaning it. It receives a form of regular maintenance, right? Another possibility is that there could be some type of thing preventing it from acquiring stains and colors and pigments. Maybe a quote-unquote force field. We're not quite sure what that would be, but we at least have a hypothetical understanding of what that might be like from all the fiction we take, which is loosely based on electromagnetics and things. And so, the existence of a white surface, as opposed to like blue or black or something that just, maintains its appearance easier, implies a purposeful desire to pick that color, unless there's a special material we don't know of that's white that can resist the accelerations and sudden turns and stops of this thing. It implies that aside from the craft itself, there's something interacting with the craft to maintain its appearance, a form of maintenance. Okay, and where that would be interesting. Could it be under the ocean? Could it be in a nation state? Could it be underground somewhere in a cavern? Could it be off planet? Where do we go with this, right? I don't know, but I know that it's a statement of fact that this object being white as opposed to another color, and its maneuverability capability. For example, it couldn't be white paint or porcelain. If you covered an object in white paint or porcelain and you accelerated regularly at Mach 20, making sudden right-hand turns and stops and accelerations right from a dead stop, right? The paint and porcelain especially would chip off. Paint again would start chipping off and cracking, and it would be a poor choice, right? Unless you had something maintaining its integrity or regularly reapplying the appearance, the surface covering. So I actually added that to my book, and it's made me think more about it. I'm going to look up how many prior to this I hadn't seen any very clear-cut recordings of people saying it was this color or that color. I have heard of the Phoenix Lights, but it's hard to get information on whether they had a stable color, whether they were just white, yellow, red. Did they change from color to color? This is something that, as a researcher, I want to get deep into, and I will be editing my book accordingly. Now, thank you for listening. Most of you listen to my channel for martial arts type things, but I am into other subjects. I have written a book on it, which maybe will never get published. It's really hard to crack into publishing these days, but if you are a publisher and you want to talk to me about it, contact me. Also, I have a Patreon page up, and if you want to support me in this endeavor, contact me. I'll send you a link. I also have a PayPal account if you want to use that, and I think my PayPal is now set up to take crypto, but I don't do much with PayPal, right? But I could use your support. That's why I made this without ads. I want to make it easier to view. When I understand Patreon and content creation a little more, I may create ad-free Patreon page only content. But I'm a little bit primitive and a little bit far away from that right now, but I could use your support. Thank you very much, and you all have a great day.